sanctions you put on us, that is haram. They seem to be the last people with anything that they worship above money, because if you only worship money, eventually you're going to end up controlled and corrupted. And that's why I think Islam's one of the last resistances to this insanity. And perhaps you can move to Qatar and you can worship God and you can pray 5 times a day like you're supposed to, and you can have a very happy life. But outside of that, I'm struggling to find answers. You can go to Fiji and hide on a tropical island and eat coconuts perhaps, but not everybody can do that. It's a very small island. It's scary, and I think a huge power grab is coming. And once they cement that power, anybody who tries to talk against it is in the law.
It's really scary. And we don't want to fear porn people, but that's the reality of the world we live in right now, is that if they can take down Donald Trump, and they've taken down Imran Khan, and they've taken out Bolsonaro, again, these guys were ridiculously popular in their own countries. And they were all taken down for corruption, for taking bribes, for taking a painting. And because they called out and they said in Bolsonaro that he led an insurrection or a violent revolt. And then you see what's happening here in the country, not here because we're in Romania. When you see
Things
what's happening
here,
in the
bro.
United States,
Trust me, things happen here.
because I was in the cab coming to this hotel, and we were told him that we were from America, and he's like, what do you think about Joe Biden? He asked me. I was like, oh man, I don't think he's awake. And he's like, yeah, do you think Trump can win? Because even people here, they know that if Trump loses, it's over for everybody. He's kind of this last man standing type of deal.
Absolutely.
And now you see $500-600 million in lawsuits against him.
So
do we survive this?
Well, this is the thing that's interesting. So then you have to find answers. So the solutions I've come up with in my mind, of course, are money, because money is power. I want people to understand that when I talk about, we talk about how money is the root of all evil. Money is also the root of all good. Money is the vested time and interest of other humans. If you have a bunch of money, you have the stored energy of other people. And I'll give you a very simple example. I have money, so I can get somebody to sweep my floor. I have their stored time and energy in a note or on a bank balance, where I can make them sweep a floor for as many hours as I so choose, because I can afford to pay them. It's the stored time and energy of other people. So for evil to be done, it requires the time and energy of humans, and for good to be done, it requires the time and energy of humans. So money is like gunpowder. It can be used for good, it can be used for bad. It's like germ theory. You can save people's lives, or you can create a pathogen that decimates a populace. So it can go both ways. Money is certainly an answer, because if you're completely broke, it's hard for you to influence other people and influence the world by extension. So money is super important. And the other thing I think is important is fraternity and brotherhood, and living for something larger than just money itself. That's why I said about the Islamic nations live for God. And I think if you look at any period of human history, one of the things that gives me solace in this insanity is that I feel like men have always believed the world is ending. Because we're looking at it right now saying, society's over, it's finished. And I feel nervous about that. And I genuinely lose sleep about that sometimes. I don't know how people sleep so easily at night watching the Super Bowl. There's times I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, we're fucked. And I can't sleep. But I feel like during the 60s, there were men who felt that way about the hippie revolution. And during World War II, of course, they felt like the world was ending. And I'm sure Vienna felt like the world was ending when the Mongol horde arrived. And I feel like people have always felt like the world is ending. I think if you're a man and you're masculine and you're protective, you're always going to feel like danger is coming. And the world always forms, and we continue, and humanity does manage to survive and progress. But it's always been a band of brothers. It's always been masculinity and fraternity which has resisted evil. It's always been, the enemy's here. Who's on my team? Here's my gang, here's my army, here's my guys. Let's get our swords and let's go fight for it. And I feel like it's also more important than ever that people who are on the right side work together. And Patrick Bet-David said this. He said the leaders are finding the other leaders, and that's true. I think it's more important than ever that we do podcasts together, that other people who agree with us, we do podcasts, and we amplify our voices. I think there has to be some degree of unity in the mission. And besides making a bunch of money, because money is power, and besides fraternity for people who are like-minded, I think those are our last chances. Those are the only chances we have. And I do believe we can slow the spread. COVID talk. Yeah. We can resist the insanity long enough, at least.
The new norm.
Yeah. We can resist the insanity long enough, at least, for them to build a new system on the back of this revolution, if there is one, or adjust the current system enough for life to still be livable. One of the things that's kind of interesting is, I find, as like being a cultural leader, one of the things that's most interesting about it is, whenever I get any hate, which which is actually very rare for me. People talk about like the fact that I'm a hated person, but 98% of the internet loves me. I really believe that. I very rarely see hate comments. Very rarely. And I've never met anyone in person who dislikes me. But man or woman. Women love me too. They're like, yeah, you're right. But when I do see some idiot posting something stupid, I sit and say, it's kind of crazy that I'm trying to help him. He's so ignorant and so stupid. He doesn't realize I'm fighting for his freedom. You know, it's kind of like you're trying to drag him, drag the horse to water. And they're like, no, you're stupid. It's like, no, you're going to die. You're trying to help the people who dislike you. It's kind of weird. I don't know if you ever had that yet.
No, it happens all the time. And I tell people, look, whether you agree with my ideas or not, the reality is I'm fighting for your right to have your shit idea.
100%.
I don't agree with your idea. I think you're stupid. I think doesn't make any logical sense. But I'm still fighting for your right to have that idea, to say those things that I completely disagree with. I'm still fighting for your right. And the people on the other side, they're fighting for their right only. I'm fighting for your ability to have those bad ideas. I don't agree with you. You don't agree with me. That's fine. But I'm trying to preserve this idea that we can have competing opinions. Because only through debate, through discussion, through various of ideas, can the great ideas really form.
Absolutely.
And I don't pretend to be right on everything. I don't want you to agree with everything I say. If anything, please disagree with me.
Absolutely.
Because it shows to me that I'm not living in an echo chamber.
Completely. And you need both sides. You're right, because equilibrium is always going to be the middle of both sides, right? So like if you have a seesaw, if you want it balanced, you need X amount on this side and X amount on that side. So you shouldn't be afraid of any idea as long as it's open and possible to discuss. It gets scary when you remove one side of the weight and it's not allowed to be discussed. Well, then it gets skewed, right? If we're allowed to openly discuss and openly talk, and I'm allowed to say the things I truly believe, and I won't be canceled for it, then I don't fear feminism. And I don't fear LGBT. And I don't fear transgenderism. I don't fear any of these people. Sit them down at a table with me and I will decimate them in real time. And I will do it so that everybody understands I am right. Because I know I am right, and God knows I'm right, and there's no way they can beat me in an argument because it's pretty fucking simple. I have a dick and you have a vagina. It's done. And I'll say it. Done. But if I'm not allowed to talk, well, that's how they get control. And that's why they censor, and that's why it's so scary. So you're right. We're not afraid of their ideas. We just want to be able to talk openly.
Yes.
They don't want us to talk because they know they're going to lose, which proves they're wrong. And they're not even smart enough to look in the mirror and go, well, why am I so afraid of him talking? Well, it's because I'm incorrect. That's the truth of it.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the school systems. When I think about LGBTQ+, TI+, QA, and when you think about all these ideas, and they're talking about in school, the teachers are allowed to promote these ideas to the kids. But the teachers aren't allowed to pray in school. And I think that's the biggest knock for me. If you're gonna allow one, you gotta allow the other. Well, because there's balance.
Of completely, but God is always going to be the final resistance to insanity, which is what I said about the Islamic countries, because there's always has to be a line. If money can corrupt, you'll agree with anything, because money can be printed, and if the idea is on the side of money, or if money is on the side of idea, you'll agree with anything. The only thing that's ever going to stop you is if you get to a religious conviction. Only God is going to get to a point where it says, it doesn't matter how much you pay me, it doesn't matter what you make me believe, it doesn't matter what the AI machine does, it doesn't matter how you've psyoped me and indoctrinated me, it doesn't matter how long you've been trying to convince me this is true. I know that my holy book and the God I believe in says this is wrong, so I refuse to believe. Only God is the final barrier to the absolute slave mind insanity, which is why they fear God, which is why they don't want to teach children about religion. Children are the most susceptible and the most vulnerable and the most programmable people in a populace. So you have to be very careful when you analyze the ideas they're trying to purport to children, because they know children are the most susceptible to believing things. They're also the most susceptible to believing fallacy. It's kind of interesting. We don't teach children things that life will ensure they understand is true. You don't teach them about taxes or things that they're going to learn the reality of.
Money management,
because they're
responsibility.
because they're a hard reality that they're going to have to experience. So we let life teach them that. So we don't care. But we don't let life teach them these other crazy ideas, because if we did, they'd reject the crazy ideas. No, we indoctrinate the young children with the ideas that they'd naturally reject otherwise. If we deleted the idea of LGBT garbage from school, and we let a child grow up to the age of 18 in a normal functioning society, in a normal functioning educational system, and said, is that a man or a woman? It'd be very clear. Everybody knows life will teach them. We're only trying to indoctrinate them against their own eyes, against their own innate understandings of how society works for these insane ideals. But anything important that life's going to teach them anyway, we refuse to teach them. So you should look very carefully at any idea they keep pushing on children, because what they're actually doing is taking an idea which they know is garbage and finding the people who are most likely to believe it, finding the suckers and the gullible, effectively. Who's the most gullible people? Because this is bullshit. So who's gullible? Well, even the most stupid adults reject this because it's so ridiculous. The children are gullible, and then they'll sit there and go, yeah, but the children don't run the world. Yet. Yet. And the psyop takes time. So it's fine. We're going to purport it on these kids. Only 10% will believe, 90% will reject. Next generation, 20% believe, 80% reject. Next generation, and eventually they get what they want. And these people and these families and those who are in charge have been in charge for a very long time because they think generationally. It's a different mindset that most people at home don't understand. You're at home trying to pay your rent. You're not thinking, how do I make sure my grandchildren don't have to pay rent? You're not.
Yeah.
And if you are, you're still doing it wrong because you've got inheritance tax and they're going to fuck you and they're going to take it all off you anyway. You're not doing it the way they're doing it. They're ensuring that there's a country somewhere that you can't even point to on a map that has a water supply. In 2072, the rights to that water supply expire and it's now going to be owned by a private corporation that his great-grandson is going to own so people can drink water. That's how they think.